This is going to sound crazy, but this is about to be the biggest year of Madden ever. I've talked a lot about how Madden 25 just wasn't a very good Madden in my opinion. Boom Tech was a ridiculous name, and it was a mess from a gameplay perspective. The gameplay overall didn't really hit in my opinion, and franchise had a couple of good ideas here and there, but I don't really feel like it did anything very well. But this year, man, I'm telling you, there is a lot to love. Today, I'm breaking down every new feature EA Sports just announced for Madden 26. But did you know that 65% of the people who watch my videos aren't even actually subscribed? I mean, that means that you're missing out on huge information for sports games that you care about every single week, like College Football 26 and Madden 26. All I'm asking is that if you find yourself enjoying this breakdown as the video goes on, I'd love for you to subscribe and get me just that much closer to my goal of 300,000 subs on YouTube. You heard me allude to it a second ago, but one of the first things that EA is talking about here is gameplay. And I do think that's by design because the vast majority of Madden players just didn't really vibe with what they put out for Madden 25's gameplay last year. There's a lot of marketing speak about, reimagining this and all these different things, but what I am excited about is hearing them talk about real-world NFL data and different tendencies and traits really applying to the game. And I will also say that I do have a hands-on impressions video coming out for this a little bit later, but I wanted to get you guys this information as soon as possible. One of the first big features they talk about here is quarterback DNA. Now look, we all know quarterback is the most important position possible in the NFL field. Somebody in the comments is probably arguing with me, but if you don't have a good quarterback, your franchise is kind of doomed. The interesting thing for me here is that Madden talks about QB signatures in Madden 26 are more of a visual replication of everything from how each quarterback holds the football in the pocket to their arm slot when slinging it down the field. That to me is interesting because all we've really had for quarterbacks to differentiate them has just been their throwing style. They also mentioned they have overhauled the player trait system with over 50 new player traits across numerous positions. And they say this is all backed by real-world and NFL tendency data. That's great to hear, but it really matters, does it look like the guys out there? Does Joe Burrow look like Joe Burrow? Does Mahomes look like Mahomes? Does Lamar look like Lamar? That's what we actually care about. And as an example, they mentioned Joe Burrow, and they say he will be more likely to set his feet before throwing than other QBs. But Josh Allen, who's kind of crazy in the NFL field, is going to be more likely to actually truck defenders as he takes a chance to scramble for a first down instead. And they go on to mention that Lamar Jackson will be getting shifty to avoid hits. Matt Stafford is dropping his arm down to finesse a screen pass. They talk about pocket presence, scrambling tendencies, and passing styles reflecting the unique traits of today's stars and tomorrow's legends. And I think this is super important because we have had an issue for a long time of every single position just kind of feels like they're the same with just slightly different attributes. This guy might run fast, but he looks the exact same as somebody else. I finally feel like Madden is getting to a spot where players are going to differentiate themselves from both animation and ratings, which is where this game should have been a while ago. Madden then goes on to talk about coach DNA, and I think this is pretty interesting here. They're leaning into machine learning from real-world NFL data that they've had kind of compiled over the last couple of years to try to mimic the unique styles and philosophies of NFL coaches. So they mentioned 4th and 3. You can imagine that Dan Campbell and the Lions are probably going to actually go for it. Passing successfully on the Vikings, expect, their guy to bring a couple of blitzes there to make it a little bit more unpredictable for you. And I think this is great no matter what mode you play, whether it's play now, franchise mode, whatever you're essentially doing. If you are playing a specific team and you know their style of football, you kind of want to see that replicated in the game you're playing. Now there's a second piece to coach DNA that talks more so about using coach suggestions and how they've kind of overhauled that. The phrase they're using here is called coach speak. So they're saying if you're playing as the Lions, Dan Campbell is going to give you various suggestions depending on the down and the distance, true to the Detroit Lions tendencies, and kind of mirror the way that he actually speaks and talks. They additionally have a real-time coaching AI where the CPU teams are going to make pre-snap adjustments and suggest play calls that specifically counter your opponent's tactics. This is really about them driving Coach John Madden's vision a little bit further about teaching you the X and O's at kind of the forefront of everything. And I think this is interesting, but it does kind of scare me a little bit. I think there are a lot of people that use coach suggestions and this will be absolutely fantastic for them, but my fear here is that a lot of people just kind of run the same plays over and over and over and over. And I do worry about a little bit of the machine learning with how it works for actual players in the real world NFL and what it'll actually be. I think this sounds like a good idea, but knowing the Madden community, this definitely scares me a little bit. And what I mean by that is that imagine the opponent you're playing is just running the same plays over and over. We all play online. We know how that works. They're going to run 2 to 3, maybe 4 plays constantly trying to just bash your brains in. How is this AI going to adjust and sort of talk about this is the play to call or run this or run that? If somebody's just running a spammy, glitchy play, I think it's still going to be an issue for people coming into online. But I guess most online players maybe won't be jumping into coach suggestions. They also announced that they have over 1,000 new plays to launch in Madden NFL 26, which to me sounds like they're planning to add even more as the year goes on. And for their defensive playbooks, they're going to have different exotic blitz pressures, defensive disguises, and the all-new stunts and twists to lock down your opponents. Madden 26 is also going to have wear and tear and new depth chart positions, which fantastic. We needed that. And they're going to have dynamic substitutions, which we've talked about in the College Football 26 video recently. So wear and tear is going to affect your player performance. Dynamic subs are going to kind of give you the seamless ability to kind of swap things around situationally without ever having to go to the pause menu, which is a major bonus for us. I will have a lot of breakdowns on wear and tear in the future, but just to know that's coming later this month. We also, for the first time, are going to have edge, nose tackle, long snapper, and the versatile gadget position all in Madden this year. I've also seen an insane amount of comments regarding Travis Hunter and how's he going to work in Madden, and people having some of the craziest possible ways that they think he's going to actually work in the game. I'm happy to let you guys know that Travis Hunter is going to have a special ability, or actually a couple of abilities here, to counteract some of the wear and tear of playing both sides of the football, meaning you can't just throw any receiver at corner and expect really them to have the same result. Travis is a unicorn, an alien, whatever you want to call him. He is going to be very specific to being one of the few people, if not the only person, that can do this. Probably one of the most exciting things, and I feel so old for saying this, but like, football weather is game-changing. The Madden dev team says they have completely overhauled not just the visuals, but also the effects of weather conditions. So we're looking at heavy snow, fog, rain, and everything in between will affect your movement, visibility, stamina, and ball control. They mentioned specifically if you're playing in a snowball type game, you're going to see players slipping or moving as clunky as they would in real life if it were an actual blizzard. The physics from how players move to how the ball carries will be adjusted to mimic weather conditions. So think again about the little chip shot field goals if the weather's getting kind of crazy. I think the important thing to notice here is they say heavy snow, and then they say fog and rain. We have never had heavy snow in a Madden game, or if we did, it was so long ago that I've forgotten about it at this point. We've always had kind of a generic light snow. We are now going to have different levels of snow, different levels of rain, and that is fantastic to have. But another nugget here, and I think this is what you're going to kind of see as a theme, is that the Madden dev team, in my opinion, the first time in a long time, is going above and beyond on a lot of these features. They mentioned they've added finer details, making the elements a part of the home field where cold weather teams will not get as impacted when playing in the cold and wet as warm weather teams would. So think about this as Miami going to play in Buffalo. That's going to be a tough game for Miami. But if Buffalo were to go to play in Green Bay, that's not really a big deal to them because they play in that weather the entire time. But they're looking to balance that, and they mentioned while playing in extreme heat, those cold weather teams will tire out faster, which is a little detail with a big impact that came straight for NFL players. And to be honest, that came straight from NFL fans because we've been asking for this for a long time. In the foundational football segment, there's a little bit of conversation about some of just the core things in this game that needed to be adjusted. One of those for me was defensive zone coverage. If you called cover 4 last year, Godspeed, you don't know if it was going to work or not. If you called cover 2, you don't know if it was going to work or not. So many coverages felt like they were busted. Man defense needed a little bit of a buff, in my opinion, in some ways. There was a lot of issues we kind of found across the board. Another big thing for me was that they talked about that a 4-2 40-yard dash should feel exactly like a 4-2 40-yard dash. And that was a weird thing for me, is that players in college football felt faster than players in Madden, but if you run 4-2 in college, you run 4-2 in the NFL, so why don't they feel the same? There's specific call-outs to their explosive locomotion, which is what they're calling it, that differentiates the north to south speeds of athletes like Tyreek Hill versus the wiggly east to west players like Jahmyr Gibbs. And that is great because, again, there are different types of fast, and I'm glad they're implementing that. Custom defensive zones and adaptive coverage are both going to be in the game this year, and that makes me extremely happy. So your custom defensive zones are going to allow you to set the depth of your zone defenders at the line of scrimmage to take away kind of those weird corner routes everybody ran last year. At the same time, you still have your zone drops, so you can still combo those together if you'd like. A really underrated feature, in my opinion, is that you can have your safeties aligned to a certain hash. You could have them pinched in. You can do a lot of different things with your safeties as an isolated group now, which is great. They don't really dive a ton into the adaptive coverage element, but again, I'll have more on that later this month for you guys. Earlier in this video, I talked about how franchise mode, in my opinion, for Madden 25 was a disappointment, and I feel like a lot of the comments I've read on my videos echo that as well. They've kind of alluded to it a little bit in the blog portion that we read earlier, but they're really trying to hit on the fact that no two NFL coaches are alike. And hopefully, as long as this comes together correctly, they're saying that should be the case in Madden. They have different heads, they've got brand new gear from a visual perspective, but they're actually talking more so about the meta game of how things are going to work in Madden 26. What's very interesting here is that you can now check out the scouting report and customize your game plan against your opponent each and every single week that you're actually playing in franchise mode. And coach abilities are kind of something that are going to, in my opinion, separate things a lot. The abilities aren't just something you kind of select in the menu. They are now actually going to be able to trigger in-game scenarios. So for example, one ability could maybe increase your offensive tackle success chance against power moves. Leveling up your coach to get you access to more abilities. Leveling up is now accomplished in a multitude of ways, from what you do on the field to scouting and to drafting, and obviously the CPU teams take advantage of the same exact game plans as well. They're also doing something pretty interesting with play sheets this year, and they tie into your playbooks. You can think of play sheets as kind of another component of your weekly game planning, and what this does is it allows you to take extra plays and kind of add them to your playbook or upgrade existing plays for the upcoming game. Now, what's very interesting is that the play sheets you'll be able to access depend on how you level up your coach and what level your coach is overall. And they also kind of hint that we have expanded roles here too. So they talk about managing player wear and tear as part of franchise strategy, and we talked about Travis Hunter earlier in the gameplay section. They have upgraded trainer roles, which mean your trainer abilities are used to manage wear and tear, which is super important, and I would love to see this in college football as well. But one of the biggest things I always get in my comments are the people that still hold on to NFL 2K5 as their favorite football game of all time. I'm not telling you shouldn't have it as your favorite game of all time, but if you haven't played that game in 20 years, then I don't know if it really is your favorite football game. But that aside, we are finally getting halftime shows and weekly recaps with Scott Hansen and an all-new custom broadcast package for Sunday, Monday, and Thursday primetime games. So what this means is that we have halftime shows, which is fantastic, weekly recaps at the end of each week, which is awesome and fantastic as well. But I think people are going to sleep on new custom broadcast packages for Sunday, Monday, and Thursday primetime games, because that means that we have 4 different presentation packages in the game. You have your basic versions of games that happen in the non-primetime slots, and then you have your Sunday night football, your Monday night football, and your Thursday night football primetime games. Seeing is believing, and I'm telling you, when you see the different presentation elements they're bringing to the game this year, it is going to make you smile. And if you are a true football fan, not somebody who's just out here hating for the sake of hating, if you really love football, I think you're going to love the presentation they're bringing this year. And speaking of presentation, they're going to have team-specific runouts, crowd chants, mascots, and pregame traditions are kind of coming in here. So they even talk about Minnesota's Skull Chant and Baltimore's Light Show. You can kind of see the, impact that college football is having on Madden now. Something you'll notice as well, you can see it in the screenshots, is that head coaches look infinitely better right now. Dan Campbell's going to have that signature Dan Campbell look on the sidelines, his t-shirt or rolled up sleeves. Raheem Morris is going to be walking in sidelines with the Jordans. You're going to see different team uniforms kind of added to the game. They actually have more alternate and classic jerseys from Nike, including the Texans redesign. A subtle detail I love is that stadium edge walls and field arts are actually being in line with specific uniforms. So you're going to see if the Bengals are rocking the whiteout, for example, that their stadium and their field are mimicking that. If the Buccaneers are in the creamsicle, well, the field logos are going to match those uniforms. And they also confirmed they have in-venue prompt graphics packages from teams' real-life jumbotrons that are going to be in the game. We talked about a lot so far, but now I want to jump into Superstar mode. So returning from last year, yes, you can still import your Road to Glory player from College Football 26, or you can create somebody brand new and just jump into the league that way. But I have to say, and again, I'll touch on this in my impressions, of everything I saw between College Football and Madden, the direction they're trying to take Superstar mode probably made me the happiest, because I have felt like Superstar mode in the game for the last couple of years has just been bad. Actually, for a very long time, it's been bad. But the direction they're taking this game this year and in the future, I'm all in. So they touched on it a little bit here, but they mentioned that from rookie hopeful to legendary icon, every week brings fresh story of the week narratives that pull you deeper into the heart of the game. Career chapters will guide you down the path to becoming a superstar. You could start as a bench player and work your way into different phases of your career by meeting objectives. But if you fail your coach, you could find yourself back on the bench and looking at a redemption arc. Build and manage crucial relationships with coaches, teammates, agents through the immersive sphere of influence system, because who you know off the field can be just as important as what you do on it. You're going to have to actually work on keeping your body in peak shape by balancing your wear and tear. There's going to be different Superstar live events you can actually push your limits into. You can sharpen your skills and try to climb your way again to the goal of being a 99 overall. And I'm telling you, this little snippet of information they're giving you here does not do justice to what they're doing with Superstar mode this year. I am extremely happy, and I love the direction they're going in. And I'm going to have a massive video talking about this in full detail the moment the embargo lifts and I'm allowed to do so. And then lastly, they hit on Ultimate Team, which again is all about building your team in these different team building challenges. If there's kind of a narrative that I kind of felt was reigning through here, is that they're actually focusing a lot more on solo players and making sure that not everything is just on people that want to play head to head, but people that enjoy solo play get some love too. Their solo reward structure has been built from the ground up and it's focusing on progression, pacing, and rewards. They're also introducing solo champions, which is really cool that they're doing that. There's a lot of mentions of new live events they're basically bringing in, but for the competitive crowd, because I know you're saying, what about me? You're getting leaderboard campaigns. So these are smaller, limited time, focused competitions that are reworked a little bit to help the placement design where every game actually matters. Because I think we've all been there. You go in and you're trying to, do one of these events and you're, 15,007. Well, cool, but you're not going to actually get any awards that actually make any sense. Their design and the way they're going about it this time makes it so that you really have to focus in and you could get some really good stuff despite, where you're ultimately ranked. They have a new pack helper that's going to help you out with making some big decisions, so you can see if a player is better than your current starter, see the auction house information, know if they help you complete a set maybe that's out there. And even see the chemistry tiering packs without even having to leave the pack opening screen, which is cool because the less buttons you have to press to go do that stuff, the better. That is everything that EA Sports just announced about Madden 26. I have so much coming for you very soon, my hands-on impression, and as the embargoes lift, I will have more about each specific mode, especially about Dynasty and Superstar mode, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear more. Like I mentioned earlier, if you enjoyed this breakdown at all, do me a favor, I'd love for you to subscribe and help me get just that much closer to my goal of 300,000 subs here on YouTube. More Madden 26 content coming soon. Be safe, be smart, tell somebody you love them. Catch you guys on the next one.